Welcome back to the show. Today we are talking about clutch, or the idea of being clutch. If you are ignorant to the game of basketball or the culture of the NBA, being clutch just means you excel under pressure. Most of the time these high pressure situations happen at the end of games. In theory though, being clutch could just mean you performed really well during the entirety of a game if that game had very high stakes. Like a game that ends a playoff series or a game that gets you into the play-in tournament. But the NBA has an official definition of clutch time. It is the last 5 minutes of a game or overtime where you are within 5 points of the other team. That is clutch time. Your performance under these conditions define whether you are a clutch guy or a choke artist. We're going to see if these clutch stats indicate whether you are afraid of the moment or have some big old nuts and ain't scared of shit. The NBA introduced the Clutch Player of the Year award this year. Why would the NBA introduce another award? We already have tons of individual awards. We have the MVP, we have the MIP, the DPOY, the ROY, the Sixth Man of the Year, the Finals MVP, the All-Star Game MVP, the Teammate of the Year, and the newly introduced Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals MVP. So many trophies. This is way more individual awards than any other league in North American professional sports. To me, it feels a bit participation trophy-esque, if you will. And the truth is, it follows that same sentiment. All of these awards are a reaction to win culture and the idea that a guy should only be celebrated if he wins a title. Personally, I am not a fan of individual awards, and my favorite players are guys that don't seem to give a about it. But this year's Clutch Player of the Year award went to a player I really like and I think has a great attitude towards the game, De'Aaron Fox. So I don't really care. So what made De'Aaron Fox a more compelling selection than DeMar DeRozan and Jimmy Butler, his other co-finalists? For starters, De'Aaron Fox finished with 194 clutch points. That's in front of DeMar DeRozan, who had 159 points. I think an important aspect of this stat to point out is 140 of those points came in wins, not losses. In theory, you could have 300 clutch points and they could all end in losses, and all those points would be moot. I got a feeling all the voters were basing this award on clutch points, not necessarily rebounds, even though clutch rebounds are just as important as clutch points.
James catches, puts up the three, won't go, rebound Bosh, back out to Allen, his three-pointer, bang! Tie game with 5!
De'Aaron's shooting percentage actually went up from 51% to 53% during clutch time. He actually got better when the pressure was on. I'm sure another factor that weighed into all the voters' decision was the moments that these players had, like this one with De'Aaron Fox.
Fox to Fox from midcourt, got it! De'Aaron Fox called game!
Now, one thing I want to point out is a truly exceptional team will very rarely find themselves in clutch time. If you're a team that finds themselves within 5 points of the other team at the end of games or in overtime a lot, you are part of the mean. You are average. You are an average team. You are very competitive. So the best teams in the league would have very few clutch points because they're always blowing teams out. This is one reason I think these scoring titles should go to points per 36, or overtime points shouldn't count. Only regulation points should count. Overtime points should be punishment for not getting the win during regulation. So for reference, that game winner was against the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic were not a particularly great team this year, and especially at that point in the season, they were bad. The Bucks had no clutch time this year against the Orlando Magic. Just think about that for a bit. Ideally, you should never find yourself in clutch time, ideally. Also, I found this very interesting. The guy that has the most points per game in clutch time during the playoffs, which it didn't count toward this award, is still De'Aaron Fox. Next up is Jimmy Butler. Two guys that were finalists for the award. If you're one of those people that believes some players are chokers and some people are clutch, then 1 point for you on this. This made me think we can use these stats the other way. Which players have ice in their veins, we can figure out which players have blood in their veins. So I thought it would be fun to pick the Choke Player of the Year. I don't feel bad about this. This player has exceeded his expectations and has had a really great career so far. But the Choke Player of the Year this year is Caleb Martin. Caleb Martin has played in 24 clutch games this year. That's 2 more than Fox. But his field goal percentage has been 30% and his three-point percentage has been 16% in clutch time. I love Caleb Martin. His story is really interesting. I loved him since he was cut by the Hornets. So this is no disrespect to him. His field goal percentage this year was 45% and his three-point percentage was 35%. Caleb Martin had a pretty good season. Sometimes the point in time which you make a shot and when you miss a shot doesn't really matter. It's completely arbitrary. I'm a Lakers fan, but I actually believe that Anthony Davis was overlooked to be a finalist for Clutch Player of the Year. AD played in 27 clutch games and he averaged 1.6 rebounds rebounds in clutch time. Like I said, clutch rebounds are equally as important as clutch points, because you can't get a point if you don't have the ball. So who are some of the most clutch players in NBA history? Where my mind goes is who had the most buzzer beaters. The numbers were significantly lower than what I thought. I'm gonna give you a spoiler, the guy with the most buzzer beaters is Michael Jordan. But how many buzzer beaters do you think he had in his career? I'll give you a second to guess. Pause it and leave a comment. Don't pause it, just watch it the whole way through. It was 9. He only had 9 buzzer beaters in his whole career. Next up were Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and Joe Johnson. Yeah, go Joe Johnson. Personally, I think Michael Jordan is the most clutch player of all time because he got 2 of those game winners in playoff series. Both against the Cavs, actually. One of them was the shot in 1989. Any sort of NBA promotional material where they're showing historic footage is going to include this shot and its celebration. A lot of people probably think that this shot came during one of the Bulls' three-peats. It did not. It actually happened 2 years before the Bulls ever won a championship. Maybe you already knew that, though.
Has Jordan. Jordan with 2 seconds to go. Puts it up and scores at the buzzer. Michael Jordan has won it.
Michael Jordan's shooting percentage during the last 10 seconds of a game was 45%. The league average was 27%. I think Michael Jordan being known as the greatest of all time kind of makes him not known as the greatest clutch player of all time because he's already the greatest of all time, if that makes sense. A lot of times people think of Kobe as the most clutch player of all time, but is this true? Back in 2011, a survey went around for general managers asking if you had to pick one player to make a game-winning shot, who would you pick? 79% said Kobe Bryant. While Kobe was playing, he definitely had the reputation of being a killer. But this was not exactly true. Over a 5-year stretch, Kobe Bryant had 56 game-winning shots and 1 assist. So defenses always knew at the end of a Laker game they were going to give Kobe the ball, and that's who they were to defend, making it pretty easy for defenses. This being the case, Kobe only made 30% of game-winning or tying shots in the playoffs for his career. And he had equally as many air balls as he did makes. That means he was being defended really tough and he didn't pass the ball. In the last 24 seconds of games where the Lakers were either down by 1 or 2 or tied, Kobe had over twice as many misses as he did makes. If you're a Kobe fan, I'm sure you're well aware of this Kobe disparagement. People have been writing articles about the illusion of the Mamba since 2009. As a matter of fact, ESPN Stats and Info tweeted this in 2015. Kobe has now missed 13 straight game-tying / go-ahead field goals in the final 5 seconds of fourth quarters or overtime. His last make was in March 2012. This was in 2015, remember. But the thing is, if you win 5 championships, people are going to remember you for things like this.
Bryant for the win.
Not things like this.
7 seconds. Here's a three-pointer air ball again.
So I don't mind the clutch award, I could take or leave it, but remember, if you're a really good team, you should never find yourself in clutch time. You should get that shit knocked out early. Alright, thank you for being here, appreciate you. Subscribe to the video, like the video if you remember. Be good to your mothers.